Hey everyone, my name's Dr. Amna Hussain, board certified pediatrician, board certified lactation consultant, and mom. And today I want to actually talk about things that you can anticipate when bringing home baby, how to set yourself up for success, and tips along the way that might help. As a pediatrician, I love seeing new parents in the hospital. There's something just so contagious about their nervousness and their excitement. It's palpable. I, as a parent as well, felt this way. As a pediatrician, of course, I knew about a few of the safety measures, but I think there's things that you can definitely do to set yourself up for success before even going home. So, for example, you might have a lot of things on your mind. Maybe you have family members at home, or maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, this baby came so early and I was not ready at all. The crib's not set up, or the house isn't baby proofed, and you have all these lists running through your head. Maybe you have tons of questions for the pediatrician while they're in the hospital. Well, here's my first tip. As these questions come up, write them down. Or now just use your handy dandy phone, your notes app, and just keep track of all the questions that you have. When your pediatrician comes into the room before discharge, make sure you talk to them about any of the concerns you might have. Maybe you have questions about the baby's jaundice. Or perhaps there's questions about feeding and we can have you see a lactation consultant before you leave the hospital. Maybe even set you up for an appointment outpatient. Or perhaps you want to talk to your OBGYN about how you're feeling after the delivery. I mean, typically OBGYN appointments are 6 weeks after delivery. Sometimes now they actually see patients at 2 weeks postpartum, just to also screen for depression as well. And if that's the case, that's great, because I think frequent check-ins with mom is super important. Especially because when you're pregnant, you're literally seeing your OB almost every single week, and then you don't see them for 6 weeks. And you literally don't feel normal down there after delivery. So you should be saving up your questions and make sure that you're able to see somebody and talk to somebody before you leave and you go home with the baby. My second tip is to make sure that you have a pediatric appointment set up before you leave the hospital. You might think that it's no big deal. By the time I get home, I'll have some time when the baby's asleep to maybe Google who my pediatrician is going to be or call them and double check. But listen, you really don't know when baby might be coming. If baby comes during the week and you're discharged on the weekend, you want to make sure that your pediatrician's office is open on the weekend. Or if you think you're going to have time when you get home to call and make an appointment, you'd be surprised. It's actually harder, I sometimes feel like, when you're home, because you think about all the other things you might be needing to do. Or like I said, maybe you have guests or family staying at home. So it's actually easier to go ahead and call and make that appointment for the baby's first checkup before you leave the hospital. Especially if we're thinking about baby's weight or jaundice, for example, or feeding difficulties, you want to have baby seen earlier rather than later, and calling ahead is very helpful. Other things that are super helpful is trying to think about safety regulations and protocols beforehand. So I'm talking about car seats. Tip number 3 is make sure you have your car seat installed beforehand. It's the law in every state in the US. And you might want to get your car seat inspected to make sure the installation was done well. There's great resources to find out where this can be done close to you. Seatcheck.org is one of my favorites. And under no circumstances is it okay to just hold your baby. It's just a short drive home. That is absolutely not safe. We want a rear-facing car seat for an infant, whether that be an infant car seat or a convertible car seat that's installed rear-facing, but that car seat needs to be in and properly installed in the car before you head home with baby. I really want to hit this point home before you actually have to go into the hospital or the birthing center to have the baby, because afterward, it's a lot to kind of keep track of, and it's not easy to make sure that you have it installed and you've gone to get it inspected appropriately. So make sure that you feel comfortable with it, that you've played around with the straps, and you're able to really make sure and navigate and work your way around the car seat. It's also helpful to know because inevitably, as soon as you get in the car, the baby is going to start crying. Sure, maybe the gentle hum of the car might put your baby to sleep, but distinctly, I remember my baby was crying, and Of course, you think of the car seat must be bothering him, or I did something wrong, or he's not strapped in properly. So make sure you know how to work your car seat as well before you put the baby in for the first time. Okay, so now you're home. After that drive, whether baby slept or baby was crying the whole time, maybe you're feeling a little nervous, maybe you're feeling relieved. I feel like when I walked into my home, I felt this sense of relief that I was now going to get to pee in my own toilet, shower in my own shower, sleep in my own bed. And yes, I still had no idea what I was doing with the baby, but I was in my own element. And that made me feel a little better versus being in a hospital gown or using the hospital bathrooms, even though I used to work in hospitals as a resident pediatrician. However, if you're feeling overwhelming feelings, I need you to not ignore those. That can to some degree be within normal limits when you're a new parent, but if they're becoming feelings of hopelessness, depression, overwhelming anxiety, where it's really getting in the way of you taking care of yourself and taking care of the baby, then I need you to not ignore those feelings. You should definitely contact your doctor or your child's doctor, because pediatricians are equipped to screen for postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, because we do see mothers and fathers very frequently in the postpartum period and during baby's first few months of life. I want you to also know that many women might feel guilty for having these feelings. I know I did. I have a beautiful, healthy baby. I'm in my home. I have support around me. Why do I feel so bad? I had some touch of postpartum blues, nothing that developed into postpartum depression, but I want you to know that that guilt is still there for having those feelings, and it's okay to feel guilty. Having a baby is a major life change, and in the days to weeks following, it's going to take some time to basically equilibrate and find your new routine. There might not even be a routine in the first couple of days to weeks, and that might take some getting used to. So I need you to realize that having these feelings doesn't make you abnormal, but make sure that you're able to check in with yourself and check in with your doctors and support system to find out if this is something that you need to get help for. Now, I say all this as I move on to tip number 4, which is try to have a plan for visitors. Now, in the pre-COVID era, I always used to say in general too, make sure you limit who comes into the house and who's really holding the baby, kissing the baby, hugging the baby. You want to make sure that they wash their hands, and in general, it's a newborn baby. Their immune system is pretty immature, so you want to make sure you're protecting them from potential viruses or illnesses. In the post-COVID era, I think this is especially important as well, because you want to make sure that you are keeping it to your social bubble and that everybody around you is potentially vaccinated for COVID if that's important to you. It's important to my husband and I, so we want to make sure that we're keeping it to just our family, our immediate family, especially in the first few months before baby really gets their first set of vaccines, that we're not traveling around, for example, using busy airports, crowded airplanes, trains, that kind of thing. That's just important to us. I highly recommend it to my new parents of newborns that you're really trying to take into account that their immune system is immature. Of course, they do have some transfer of maternal antibodies, but still, it's important to think about beforehand who's going to be coming into the house, because these are tough conversations to have when you might be in the middle of nursing your newborn and you have your toddler and you might have other things going on and obligations, and then you're trying to figure out how to politely decline somebody that your husband's already told it's okay to come. I think it's okay to have a couple of statements or texts or things at the ready to be able to share if somebody does want to come over, and politely be able to decline them. So you might say something like, we're a little overwhelmed and have our hands full right now, but when we're ready to see visitors, we'll make sure to contact you, or we'll make sure to reach out to you. You could also potentially blame the pediatrician. We totally don't mind being the bad guy. So you can say, we'd love to have you, but our pediatrician said it's safer right now if we limit our social bubble to just essential family members. something like that. While that might seem difficult in the moment, just know that you're not in the minority. A lot of parents are struggling during this time, especially when you have a newborn during a pandemic. You're not quite sure. Everybody says get support, and then you're told to isolate yourselves and distance yourself from everybody. So it's important to have these conversations beforehand and think about how you potentially might approach visitors, or if you are having an issue, who's going to be part of your support network. Speaking of, tip number 5 is make sure you go with the flow. Try your hardest. Now, this is actually personally something that I want to say, but then also somehow reflect back and hope that this advice comes back to me, because I'm somebody who loves to plan. I plan out my hours, plan out my days, that this is the workout I'm going to do. This is what I want to cook tonight. This is what I anticipate doing in the afternoon when I'm with my daughter. These are the errands I need to run on this day. This is what I'm going to do on the weekend. And in those first 6 to 8 weeks, there may be no routine. It's like a fuzzy gray period. That's what I describe to parents. And you might want to set the bar very low for yourself, because you might feel, especially if you're somebody who's a bit of a perfectionist like me, that you're just not checking all the boxes, and it's because you need to up your A game. Your game is already upped. You just had a baby. You are trying to literally just come up for air and be able to take care of your little one, or maybe all of your kids if you have more than one child, and try to, again, take care of yourself in the meantime as well. So try to go with the flow. Try not to be too hard on yourself. You might not get those same old routines, like maybe you used to go out on the weekends for brunch with your significant other, or get a long workout session in. That might not be the routine or tradition that you're able to keep up for maybe some time, but you'll develop new routines and new traditions that'll take a new place in your heart. And I want you to know that if you do have questions, your pediatrician's always here for you. We don't just take care of the child, we do inevitably also end up taking care of parents as well, and guiding you on your journey into parenthood. I hope this video was helpful. Make sure you save it, subscribe if you'd like. New videos are coming out every Monday. Have a good week.